Hey, everybody. I just want to thank you so much for being with me today. It's funny, I find myself meeting so many people, but in the midst of meeting people, I get to hear these amazing stories of individuals who have overcome situations that once defined them, but that's no longer who they are. I met a gentleman by the name of Carlos Anzar, met him on Facebook. Um, it's funny, when I lived in San Diego, I used to attend a church, and he's now attending that church. And we met through some mutual friends, and he saw a few videos of some people who had some stories that were very inspiring, and it made him want to tell his story. So I just wanted to present him. I wanted him to talk about his story and his experience, and I believe it's going to touch some people. Carlos, um, are you there?
Yeah, how's it going, brother Bruce?
I'm
You know,
good, man. I'm good, man. I just want people to know that how you seem like you're a regular guy. You know how the conditions that you grew up in as a kid, and what you became when you turned 18. Tell us a little bit about that.
okay, so I guess I'll start with saying my name is Carlos. Um, Today I'm 32 years old. I was brought up in a town in San Diego called San Isidro, which is in at the bottom of San Diego, right next to Mexico, right next to Tijuana. And my mom did her best to raise me and my little brother. Um, Growing up, we didn't have a father figure, and my family, wasn't too dysfunctional, but I've learned that my mom the whole time was taking anxiety and depression pills because she suffered from a nervous breakdown from before I even knew her. I mean, like from like before I was born, she was already taking these pills, you know. So I didn't know she suffered a nervous breakdown. So like what I thought was regular to me was wasn't, you know.
Yeah,
So there was always a disconnection growing up, not having a father figure. Uh, um, I ended up being rebellious and not listening to my mom. And I'd like to think of it this way: my brother was more like a father figure, and for that reason, I ended up being in a gang at age of 14. You know,
yeah,
I have nobody to show me how to be a man growing up, how to treat a good lady like a lady, how to change a tire, how to work hard. You know, my mom did her best by taking me to church. Growing up, I was raised as a Catholic, but to me it was like always boring. It was more tradition and religion. So at
what happened when
14,
you turned what happened when you turned 18?
so by the time I turned 18, man, I was already heavily involved in gangs. I was drug trafficking, not just drugs, but like guns and people. And the fact that I was raised by the border, like I had access to both sides, you know. So I was living a fast-paced life. At 18, I was going in and out of county jail. Um, I had my son, and I didn't appreciate that for what it was worth. So by then, I was just committing crimes, man, committing crimes, making fast money that I had no sense of direction. A few years later, after I turned 18, you know, I always had homies that were shooters, and I was one of them myself with them. And we always did licks and stuff, you know, living wrong, living a fast paced life. And long story short, I had a good buddy of mine who was more like a brother. Um, One time, I had been shot, so we were always packing, being cautious of our own lives, you know, for protection. We always had a strap on us. And long story short, one time I seen him shoot at these three gang members that were our enemies, our rival gang members. So out of those three, one of them died. The second one ended up in critical conditions, and the other one just got away. You know, I thought nothing of it. This happened like bright daylight while like school was getting out, and we got away with it, man. And in the hood, in the streets, it was like whoopie doo, you know,
Yeah,
more street credit for us. You know, we got another one or whatever. because it's like a scoreboard. Who gets the most bodies, or who does the most dirt from town to town. So
But eventually, you find yourself in prison. You know, the guy that shot those three guys, you ended up, and he also ended up in prison. So when you ended up in prison, you know, this is probably at your lowest point in your life. You
yes. So when I ended up in prison, it was my second term in prison. This time I'm serving a sentence of 5 years for evading police and a stolen vehicle. I lost my marriage. I had a son and a daughter by then. I wasn't part of their life. 5 years felt like a life sentence to me.
yeah.
My buddy that I seen through the shooting, he got caught for another murder, and I had a lot of good friends and people I know that have died and that have been shooters and that are doing life and that are no longer around. I found myself being blessed today, having my life and my freedom. What happened when I was in prison, a pastor went to Donovan State Prison, which is a prison here in California, in San Diego. He held a service. So, me, out of being bored in my cell, I wanted to get out. We were locked down, didn't have no yard or anything. I went to the service, and God had a plan, man. He held a good service and gave us his book called The Heart Revolution. And so I read it. Being in a cell, you have a lot of downtime. So I read the book, and it started changing my heart, to the point to where I started thinking about the person that I seen get shot and killed. And I've seen other people get shot. I've seen other things in my life, and I never felt anything. But being so close to this one, it just spoke to me, especially because 2 years into my sentence, I got transferred to a prison called Centinela,
Mm.
which is out there like in Imperial Valley, California. And God had a plan, man. He gave me a cellie, and that cellmate was homeboys with the person that I seen get shot and killed. That was his homeboy. So basically, I'm cellies with my enemy. And imagine that.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. So we become buddies. We're cellmates for like 10 months. So I learned about the person, man, that I seen get murdered. He was a young man. He left a newborn left behind, a widow left behind. So after reading that book and getting familiar with the Bible, I started praying. I've always believed in heaven and hell. And even though I was living the life I was living, I knew one thing. I didn't want to go to hell. So
So something happened when you. So eventually, at this point, you have the encounter in prison. You meet this guy, and then you find yourself out of prison after serving your sentence. What happens after you get out? Like, what was life like after you got out?
okay,
The-
so after I got out, I was already tired of. Deep down inside me, I knew I was living wrong. I was always living wrong. I always knew that I was living a sinful life. I was tired of it, but deep down, my prayers were to change. To become a real man, to put away the childish things and become a man. And
yeah,
one of my biggest things was to receive forgiveness. I always wanted to give my condolences to that family that I that I seen. Like basically, I wanted to give my condolences to the family of the person I seen die. And the realistical chances of that happening were like 1 to 1 million. If they were anything like me, they'll be like, forget your apology. Nothing's gonna change. It ain't gonna bring them back. So 8 years later, I meet my girl, and as I get to know her, it turns out that she was the widow of that dude's baby's mom. So
what?
yeah, man, she was that dude's baby's mama, and a little boy that doesn't have a dad. Now I'm helping her raise him. I'm his dad, and I say it humbly. Not boasting. I feel like the least I could do is be there for him and father him, and the least I could do is just be a man and figure in his life like the one I never had. And now what I lost, God replaced. He gave me another family after I lost a family. We both had our pain, and now we're both healing together. My biggest fear was exposing this before, and now thanks to the scripture that says God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and of a sound mind. I can now confidently walk my identity in Christ and know that I'm a new creation and that I can do all things from Christ who strengthens me. So I expose this now with no fear, confidently knowing that God's got my back. I'm in the grips of His hand, and now instead of being a dope dealer, I'm a hope dealer. I want to give hope to those that are still lost, living the life that I was living, knowing that if He could do it for me, He could do it for them. You know.
That's awesome, man. And the funny thing is, in all this, I think in the very beginning, you didn't know what the plan of your life was for. You didn't know what that plan was. And as you've experienced more in your life, I think now you can see God's hand on your life from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And now, for those, who are watching this video, I want to let you know the very thing that Carlos has felt in his whole life. From the very beginning of his childhood up until being 18 and up until being the age of 32 years of age right now. He's seeing that God has always been there. And I want to tell you the same thing too. For those who are hopeless, who question if God is here, why am I experiencing so much pain? I just want to tell you, God uses everything, everything to walk you into your purpose. So this is about purpose, y'all. And I want to tell you, if you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know why you were designed, I want to tell you, look at Carlos. Carlos is exposing his past. God is using his past to step him into his future. And for those who are watching, I hope you feel inspired. Thank you, Carlos, for sharing your story, man. We love you, and we're cheering you on, brother. Thanks, man, for your time.